A tearful welcome home for survivors of Flight 811. Stomp is buried, but scandal lives on for Winnie Mandela.
And Raging Bull meets roguish charm at last.
There wasn't a dry eye in the house at Auckland International Airport today as the survivors of Flight 811 came home. A special United Airlines jumbo brought them in, more than 100 people who, just 24 hours before, had lived through a nightmare over the Pacific.
The whine of jet engines in the chilly pre-dawn hours was a welcome sound for hundreds of people. Victoria Fowler almost never made it home to be a bridesmaid at her twin sister's Easter wedding. People came from all over the North Island to greet friends and family.
Get it, Granny, come here, Granny. Even though you sort of knew she was safe, you just couldn't settle until you actually somehow saw her. They were organising a surprise day for our 40th wedding anniversary, and we didn't know that our daughter was on the flight.
Got no suitcases, haven't got any clothes, got nothing at all.
Many returned with just the clothes on their back and souvenirs of the Pacific tragedy.
What happened is the FBI are going through the whole piece by piece, and just in case there was anything suspicious. Not that I think there is.
Rear-seated passengers knew little of the seriousness of the damage during the flight.
If we had known, we would have walked round to the other side and have a look. Yeah, we're just happy to get off.
The first thing I did was tell my wife that I loved her. And then for me to talk to my wife, who was no further than this, I had to shout at the top of my lungs. You couldn't. I mean, the noise was incredible.
There was nervousness about today's special flight, but not all shared it.
Figured we'd been spared.
Thank you.
So it was all right. We were going to be all right the rest of this trip.
Others, scared off United aircraft, opted for a later flight. 24 hours ago, the Fodé family felt they were just metres from death.
You can't imagine what it's like
you're looking at the sea.
to be 19,000 feet in the air and having no side to the plane and having the side you're sitting on gradually crumbling in. You just know it's the end.
I feel like we've become lifelong friends. And
Wow, have you got our
A special bond has formed between many of the passengers.
Okay.
Here we are.
Denise
Great,
Brady and
thanks.
daughter Sarah will never forget one man.
Thanks for your help.
Did you thank him for helping you down the chute, Ellie?
Thank you.
Stephen Christensen for the Network News.
While some people may have made lifelong friends, others may have lifelong problems. They're the ones who can't cope with what happened and suffer emotional distress that affects them and their families.
The United Airlines disaster was perhaps most harrowing for survivors sitting near the gaping hole in the plane. Many watched in horror as passengers were sucked from their seats. Margaret Chapman escaped with just bruises and blisters from sliding down an escape chute. But the disaster's already deeply affecting her and her family.
A panel came off near me and there were things falling from the ceiling and stuff flying about from inside the walls.
And where the strain boiled over, Salvation Army volunteers were on hand.
We've been up in the rentable lounge with quite a number of people just chatting away, just letting them share, just letting them get it off their chest.
But in the coming weeks, some people may need professional guidance.
It's very important that they get in early. The effects can be relieved quite substantially. It would be a matter of getting in touch with your GP, Citizen Advice Bureau, or even a psychologist directly.
During the Mount Erebus disaster, no one was under more pressure than Maria Collins. Almost 10 years on, the grief hasn't gone away, and she believes airlines have a real responsibility to provide active support to anyone involved in a disaster.
Well, I think that it's essential that apart from providing a hotline, that they actually provide their own personnel to actually face the bereaved people, to discuss the tragedy as it has occurred.
United Airlines General Manager Wayne Dodge today refused to be interviewed on camera. He told reporters,
"We're ready, able and willing to provide any assistance that may be necessary, and we'll work with any social services as necessary."
Families all over the country are celebrating their reunion tonight, but their joy and relief may soon give way to torment when the trauma sets in. Maxine Clayton for the Network News.
The parents of the New Zealand victim of yesterday's air accident are making a plea for tougher aircraft regulations. They say they don't want their son's death to have been in vain and say authorities must realise that aircraft seats should be bolted together to prevent a similar tragedy occurring again.
24-year-old Lee Campbell was coming home from a 2-week business trip to Germany, Luxembourg and New York in his new job as Salmon Smith Biolab's sales and marketing manager. His parents say their eldest son was very popular and followed his father's avid interest in sports cars. He also enjoyed squash, photography, classical music and art. Mr. Campbell says the last time Lee flew, his plane was delayed for 7 hours after a piece of the fuselage fell off. Kevin Campbell says he and his wife Susan hope some good can come out of their son's tragic death. They say they've many times in the past discussed the need for rigid connections between the rows of seats on aircraft and that airlines keep seats flexible purely for financial reasons. The Campbells say they hope their son's death hasn't been in vain and that civil aviation authorities will see why such measures must be taken. Carolyn Weston for the Network News.
There are growing indications today that a lock on a cargo door may be to blame for the tragedy aboard Flight 811. Similar locks have caused concern on some other jumbo jets, but officially there's no confirmation of the faulty lock theory, and the authorities are still searching for clues.
The hunt for clues and the 9 missing passengers centred south of Hawaii today. So far, searchers have recovered some debris, but the main missing piece of the puzzle is a cargo door like this one, torn off the United Airlines 747 shortly after takeoff. Today, a team of investigators from the American National Transportation Safety Board are in Hawaii trying to find out why that happened.
It will look for any aspects of sabotage. It will examine the door systems, document the cargo area.
Former US Aviation Inspector Carl Hutchinson says the opening points to a problem with the door itself.
The lower sill portion and frame in which the lower latches are attached appears to be intact. If the door is properly locked, it would have taken all of that locking mechanism with it.
US Airlines have been under federal orders to inspect and reinforce cargo locks on older 747s since the door on another plane opened in flight. But the lock on the 19-year-old United plane had yet to be fixed.
But we don't feel that that is an issue here. We don't feel that that part is an issue here in this incident.
New Zealand airline pilots want an urgent review of air safety precautions. Among questions they want answered, should a 747 like United still be flying after 19 years?
If there is a problem that these jets won't go on forever, then we want to find out now.
The pilots say deregulation of American air carriers is mostly to blame. Price wars left them less money to upgrade their ageing fleet. Investigators are hoping the Hawaiian tragedy that raised those doubts may also provide some answers. Ian Sinclair for the Network News.
The Queen has appealed to a World War II veteran to end his 10-day hunger strike over her husband's attendance at Emperor Hirohito's funeral. However, the 70-year-old veteran says he's been sentenced to death by Prince Philip unless the Prince resigns as patron of a veterans group, the Burma Star Association. Today, Prince Philip moved to reduce ill feeling among veterans with a visit to a Commonwealth War cemetery near Tokyo. He laid a wreath at the memorial to 1,700 servicemen who died in prisoner of war camps in Japan. Another guest at the Emperor's funeral, President George Bush, has now arrived in China for a 2-day visit. Premier Li Peng presented Bush and his wife Barbara with the latest model Chinese bicycles. In return, he was given a pair of Texas cowboy boots, complete with a Chinese and an American flag. And winter has finally arrived in Britain, with heavy snow closing roads and causing numerous accidents. Motorists have had to abandon their vehicles, and authorities are working overtime to clear major highways. However, some have enjoyed the winter weather, which has been a rare sight this season, and more snowfalls are forecast. The South African government today temporarily lifted restrictions on political funerals to allow the burial of teenage activist Stompie Moketsi. Police allege that he was killed by Winnie Mandela's bodyguards, and the funeral route passed graffiti branding her a killer. But anti-apartheid leaders have warned mourners not to let the killing divide them.
a political funeral with a difference. Just this once, the South African government allowed protest in the street, allowed full news coverage normally banned under the emergency, and kept police out of sight. All because the murder of 14-year-old Stompie Moketse is blamed not on the state, but on the bodyguards of Winnie Mandela. Community feeling is running ahead of the courts. No one in Tumahole Township was outraged by the graffiti, whoever daubed it on hoardings along the funeral route. No one in the township has made any attempt to paint over the graffiti, to remove the accusation against Mrs. Mandela. And Stompie's grieving mother rejects claims by the Mandela bodyguards they did not kill him, but rescued him from sexual abuse by a Methodist minister. The Reverend Paul Verreyn denies the allegations and was made welcome in church today.
I have lost a friend. I have lost a freedom fighter.
South Africa had taken away your innocence. It is apartheid that is the greater infamy and deserves the deeper anger.
Others remember a remarkable child of South Africa. Aged 12, Stompie led a children's army in township revolt. He predicted his own death, but not the storm it would create.
Time now for the day's sport, and some records have been broken at Eden Park.
Pakistan's become the first team to top 600 runs in a test innings in New Zealand. They reached 616 for 5 before Imran Khan declared. That left New Zealand a huge task to avoid the follow-on. And at the end of the third day, they're struggling.
The Pakistan run machine ground on relentlessly this morning.
He's got 4 more. No need to walk for that. In fact, this is going to be over the fence, isn't it? Yes, it's 6.
In contrast, the Kiwi bowling machine ground to a halt.
Had a couple of warm-up deliveries and obviously has broken down.
Imran Khan brought up the 600-run milestone in style.
Big hit here from Imran. This will go all the way. That's a huge hit, 6 runs.
And he declared at lunch at 616 for 5. Then the Pakistan spinners had immediate success in Torpy's very first over.
John Wright is given. The New Zealand skipper is out.
And with leg spinner Carter also in the attack,
Googly.
Things really went into a whirl in the middle.
Bit of a tornado whistling around out in the middle. Goodness gracious.
But in fact, this was only the calm before the storm. Barnes succumbing after a fighting innings of 68.
Oh, he goes for this one. It's in the air. He could be caught. He is.
Worse was to come, with Martin Crowe helping to leave Andrew Jones stranded on 47.
Oh, confusion. And Jones is out.
And night watchman Stephen Bock's controversial dismissal left that follow-on mark of 417 still a long way away.
Field for the bat pad.
Ken Nicholson for the Network News.
And at stumps, New Zealand was 133 for 4 in reply to Pakistan's daunting 616 for 5 declared. Vance out for 69 and Jones for 47. He held on for 5 rounds, almost literally. But Britain's Frank Bruno was never any match for world heavyweight boxing champion Mike Tyson. Mercifully, the long-awaited fight was stopped before the machine mangled the mouth.
Here he comes into the ring. Frank Bruno, listen to the cheers.
The Big Briton had sentimental support, if nothing else. Mike Tyson's welcome to the ring was almost muted in comparison. All the pundits maintained Bruno would become just another horizontal challenger to Iron Mike's heavyweight crown. And within seconds of the fight starting, it was difficult to escape that impression.
Bruno tries to keep him up. Bruno showing that he's not afraid, hanging on. Bruno's already tagged with the right hand. And down goes Bruno for the first time in the fight.
But the Bruno Brigade implored their man to counter-attack, and he did so immediately.
Tyson gets nailed with a left hook. Tyson looks wobbly as he attacks Bruno. Bruno continues to throw. Tyson was caught and wobbled.
It was the high point of the fight for Bruno, but he seemed to be hanging on no more.
Will catch up with Frank Bruno, and your heart's almost with Frank to hope he can make a good fight of it.
And Bruno did buckle, with Tyson coming on in vicious mood at the end of the 5th round.
As the big right hand lands, Tyson knows he's got him in big trouble. If he doesn't answer it, Richard Steele has moved in and has stopped the fight. It's all over. Michael Tyson wins on a 5th round TKO.
Bruno was still vertical, but Tyson still unbeaten in 36 fights. Richard Beck for the Network News.
Flojo, the woman famous for her fingernails, fancy outfits and fast running, will run no more. Just 2 days after Florence Griffith Joyner was named 1988's Outstanding Athlete in America, the triple Olympic gold medalist has retired at the age of 29. The world record holder for both the women's 100 and 200 metres wants to take up acting and writing.
I'm not looking into it as monetary basis, but because I love writing and I love pursuing a career as an actress.
And she's already made a start down that track with a successful screen debut. But the woman who stunned Seoul with her unusual track gear and her sprinting has a new mission. She wants to be a female James Bond. 26 hardy souls sailed out of Auckland this afternoon on a mission that'll test both their characters and their strength. It's the two-handed round the North Island yacht race, and for one crew it'll be a special test.
Rob and Mandy Carpenter were married 2 weeks ago and decided this race would be their honeymoon. Rob won the event in 1983. It's his third time in the race and he knows it'll be different.
With two blokes you can sort of get quite personal and have a good screaming match and at the end of it not worry too much about it. Just got to make sure Mandy doesn't take too much to heart, that's all.
You nervous about it?
Oh, terribly, yes.
Yacht designer Greg Elliott is favoured to win line honours in his own design Peacemaker, but he has 2 other designs entered, including sterling silver. The yacht's headed to the start line this afternoon in a brisk 15-knot easterly. Their first stop is at Manganui in Northland, and they're aiming to break the 7-day sailing record around the North Island.
Great conditions for the start. We hope it stays that way.
I'm sure they do too. Let's see how the weather turned out around the rest of the country on this summer Sunday. Here's Penelope.
Cloudy skies continued over the east coast of the North Island today. The west and south of the South Island also a bit overcast, but it was a sunny Sunday in other parts. Temperatures were coolish today, and that's perhaps an early sign of autumn's approach. The coolest place was inland at Taupō, one of the warmest spots, 23 up here in Kawakawa, and that was shared by Christchurch, who were the national high. And you can also see that temperatures are up a little bit in the South Island today from previous days. The cloud source over the east coast today is clearly seen streaming from the southeast. Areas of low cloud from a weak front engulfing these parts of the South Island. Ivy hovers up here east of New Caledonia, and needless to say we'll be watching very closely where she wanders. On the Tasman side of things there's very little happening, but over near Sydney you can see a weak front arching into a parent depression. However, there's a nice big high over the country, H's on either side of us, and there's every indication that these two will be joined by a fellow colleague by noon tomorrow. That'll make one large high, and it'll also mean that these other features get pushed right out of the running. All in all, a good week ahead. Let's take a look at Monday. Cloud lingers again in the east, otherwise the day should be fine. Southeasterlies pick up, temperatures remaining the same. Cloud over Gisborne will gradually clear tomorrow, so a fine day ahead. Temperatures should be warm tomorrow afternoon, but grab an extra blanket tonight, it'll be cool. In the middle of the country we're expecting a fine, mild day. However, cloud will develop as the day progresses. Mainly fine and mild with light winds for the centre of the South Island. Cooler southerlies move into eastern districts later on, bringing cloud. In the far south, drizzle and cool southerlies overnight, becoming fine tomorrow in Fiordland and other inland areas, and you can see temperatures are a little cool in some areas. Tuesday will be a bit wet in the Gisborne area, some cloud spreading to Hawke's Bay and Wairarapa. As for everyone else, a fine day.
Thanks, Penelope. In today's top stories, there are indications that a faulty lock may be to blame for the tragedy aboard Flight 811. There was a tearful welcome home in Auckland today for the survivors of the ill-fated flight.
That's tonight's Network News and Sport.
Our next bulletin here on One is at 10:15. Till then, good evening.
Good evening.
It seems that America's Black Birch Observatory near Blenheim may be doing a little more than stargazing. Frontline next with that story.